wanted to finally do my race report on the Bayshore Half Marathon I ran 2 weeks ago in Traverse City, Michigan. Um, this was a race I was looking for redemption basically for Boston, where the weather was terrible. I didn't do as well as I'd hoped. I got into this race for free because someone at work backed out of it and I took their spot. So it was kind of a fortunate thing. I decided to sign up for it before I ran Boston, but I was kind of glad I did after Boston went the way it did. And I was hoping to kind of capitalize on all that training I did for the Boston Marathon. I had run another half marathon as a tune-up back in March and instead of PR by like 2 minutes. And so I was hoping to build on that a little further and feel kind of a redemption from Boston. As time went by, this kind of turned into almost a mini Boston at first because the weather report kept kind of looking, at first it looked good and then it started looking worse and worse. There were thunderstorms in the forecast. There were, possibilities of even the race being canceled due to lightning. And so it was starting to seem like a pretty big downer there going into the race. But got up there Friday night, which one thing I did learn is I should have probably had an extra day's worth of layover there because I got up there Friday, the race was Saturday morning, and my original thinking was, one, it's only a half marathon, two, it's only like a 2.5 hour drive up there, so I didn't think I'd be that worn out from driving and all that, but I kind of forgot or didn't really consider how much work it is to load up my car with all my camping gear, take it all out, set up my tent, all that kind of stuff. I got in, I was doing my regular training, so I got in a 7-mile run the night before when I was running the half marathon in the morning, and I was just like, yeah, that's probably a lesson I have to learn from now on, is always have a day in between just to kind of be able to relax. So that's one thing I'd do differently if I was going to run the race again. But that being said, I ended up doing pretty well. The temperatures were a little warmer than you'd like. I think it was probably in the mid 70s-ish at the end of the race. Got up there and it was warm enough at like 6:30 where it's like, this is going to be a hot day. I think it got up to the 80s by the afternoon. Luckily, the half marathon started at 7:30. The marathon started at 7:15, I believe. So they did fortunately start earlier enough that it was still pretty cool out. But it was warm. It was really warm even at the start of the race. Normally for a half marathon I don't take in any water or Gatorade or anything like that. I can make it straight through, but I knew from the temperature I was like, I'm gonna take in the liquids at every single station, so that's what I did. I ended up running my second fastest half marathon ever, so that's nothing to sneeze at, It felt a little anticlimactic because, like I said, back in March I had run almost 2 minutes faster than I did at this race. I ran a 1:29:15, and so that the tough thing about running in heat is that it really messes with your mind because it's like, okay, so how much of that was due to the heat? How much of that, did I regress? Am I slower than I was back in March? I doubt it, but you start wondering about those things. Am I overtraining? Am I not training hard enough? Et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of those things about running in heat that it always kind of messes with your mind, and you always kind of feel like a little bit of despair because it's like, I was so much faster back when it was cold out. So yeah, I didn't really feel bad about it. I did fairly well. I pushed myself about as hard as I felt I could in that heat. One thing I paced poorly is once I got to the track, I just took off. I crossed the finish line my pace chart goes like this. Like I ended up crossing the finish line at like 4:23 pace. So I definitely had more in the tank. I probably could have, cut off, maybe 5 seconds a mile or something if I would have pushed myself a little harder the whole way. If you have that much in the tank at the end, it's a sign you really had more to give. But that's really hard to judge on a hot day because you don't want to go overheat. It's a tough decision to make. So Don't beat myself up too much for that, because it's really hard to judge. One thing I have to do is give a shout out to my former coworker. He ran a masterful. He ran the full marathon. He set a PR, I think, by 3 minutes. Ran just under a 3:01, so he ran like a 3:51 or 3:56 or something like that. And he negative split it. He ran like the first 10 miles over, I think, 7-minute pace, low 7 minutes, and then ran like the next 16 at like 6:50-ish pace, something like that. So yeah, he killed it. And I saw his Strava, and it's like his heart rate even went down as he was speeding up, and it got warmer. So I don't know if he's a superhuman or what, but that was really impressive. Like, that blew me away. But yeah, definitely for me, I could tell it was too hot. One thing to know, if you're going to run the Bayshore Half Marathon and you haven't before, or even if you've run the 10K or the full marathon but not the half, there's a huge hill at the beginning of the half marathon. It's not, especially because it's right at the beginning, it's like you just get it over with and the rest is flat, so it's not one of those things that's going to totally kill you, but it's also not necessarily going to be an ideally fast course to set a PR because of that rather big hill right at the beginning. I did okay up the hill. I stormed down the hill. I ran like a 6:25 my second mile split. But that is definitely one thing to be aware of. There's a huge hill. You can see it right from the starting line. You're like, we got to go up there. So yeah, that is one thing to take in consideration. The marathon, by comparison, is almost completely flat. It's a great course. But the half marathon cuts off. The marathon is an out and back that goes up and down, but then the half marathon cuts off to the side here, and there's a big hill before you join the rest of the course. So that's one thing to watch out for. One of the very cool things I like about Bayshore is you finish on the high school track, which is a cool experience. You get the spectators get to line up on the track, and you can like, if you're an old sprinter like me, it's fun to hit that track and try to run as fast as you can and make a mad dash for the finish line. So that's one thing I really enjoy, and they do a good job. There's lots of food and stuff after the race. It's a really well organized race. Great course, beautiful scenery up there. There's lots to do over the weekend. Lots of family stuff to do. Lots of things to go out and do and see. I went out to South Manitou Island the next day, hiked around. So lots and lots of stuff to do up there. So that's pretty much it, I guess, for my review. Next up for me is the Marathon de Mont Blanc here in 3 weeks from today. I'll be running it. So I'm very nervous about that. I'll be doing a preview about that. I also got a shoe review I got to get out. I'm a little backed up here, but just wanted to get this out there. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like the content. I'll be back with more, and you'll see me soon.